What do you think literature is? And that's not got two T's in it, even if you think it does. It's not literature, which you might find beside the road, and there are people paid to pick it up. What does literature mean, do you think? Someone raise their hand and respond to that.
Literature is the retelling of events that have happened in the past.
Literature is the retelling of events that happened in the past. Very good. Very astute. This man has had previous instruction, it sounds like. What's he after? Well, he's saying that there's a difference, apparently, between what we call literature and all the other stories that might have been told in the world. I don't know whether anybody here ever reads books. I mean, for pleasure. But I do, because I don't have a television. That's my problem, right? If I had a television, I wouldn't have to read these dumb books. The kind of dumb books I read, I've read all the science fiction in the library. Have those stories ever been told before? No, they haven't. No, they're all brand new stuff. I'm well on my way to working my way through all the detective fiction in the library. Have those stories been told before? No. I just read one about Dirk Pitt, the Pacific Vortex. These little green men come up out of the water and steal ships, and it's a mad scientist from the past century. It's his son. It's not been told before. I don't read romance, so you can forgive me for that. Okay, I probably will one of these days because I'll be desperate. I may run out of stuff. And then I read all that popular business like international spy thrillers. I'm sure I've read 90% of all the international spy thrillers have been written in the last 20 years. Have those been told before? No. That's not literature, though. Nobody thinks that stuff's literature, do they? If I wrote 5 of them, made the bestseller list, could I get a job at Harvard? Yes or no? I haven't. You don't have to worry. I'm not going anywhere. But could I? Yes or no? Yeah, probably. Yeah. They love bestseller list people, especially if they have a PhD. But even a master's would do. Sure. But that wouldn't be literature, right? They wouldn't pay me. They wouldn't buy my papers, would they, when I die? Yeah, yes, they would, actually. The University of Texas is very big about buying anybody's papers. They're buying Michener's papers. James Michener, Hawaii. He's writing a book, or just wrote a book called Texas, and they're buying his papers. So apparently there isn't as easy a distinction between what literature is and what popular writing is. At least not as easy a distinction as maybe existed in the past. Nonetheless, we can be relatively certain that literature is something that involves the retelling of some ancient tale, myth, or story. Frequently we would say that literature this kind of literature, the retelling stuff, don't be dreaming there. Write this stuff down. This is hot stuff. You don't want to miss a word of it. You can a lot of times divide these retellings into those which were once historical and those which were always mythical. Of course, sometimes we don't know. Did the Garden of Eden really happen? If you think so, raise your hand. 1, 2. If you don't think so, raise your hand. 1, 2. And the rest of the people are always in the middle. Okay. Did the Trojan War really happen? Raise your hand. Is it historical? Who thinks it's just a myth? It never really happened? Raise your hand. Again, you can get a division of opinion. I don't feel like I have to set you straight either way, right? It doesn't matter to me, right? Did I really happen? Am I a myth or a fact? No, well, that's not necessarily as obvious as you think it is. And of course, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about you. We're all talking about ourselves. We can discuss that further. For instance, when we look at Kafka, I think we're going to have to look at Kafka's metamorphosis. Guy turns into a bug. Is that fact or reality? Is it fact or fiction? Fiction. Yeah? If you wake up and you got a hard back, and little beetly legs, right? You can't talk except for little tiny squeaks. And your mom comes in the room and screams. Is it fact or fiction? Well, yeah, again, we can look at it. I'm just trying to show you that literature concerns, and you might want to get this, deeper questions of human identity that have always preoccupied people. This is not a new thing. That's the emphasis on literature. Literature is not new. It's retold again and again and again. Well, I couldn't possibly. I can play back the tape, though. Don't worry about it. If you don't get it once, I'll be back. I'm like the salesman that won't go away from your door. And since you got the whole semester in front of you, no problem. Last day of class, though, you got a problem. But right now, we got lots of time. What I tend to do is repeat these things. So I'm just asking what literature is. I don't know why. Seems like somebody ought to ask that question. What do you want to learn? I mean, I'm just telling, that's a definition by way of contrast. Comparison and contrast. What do you want to know about literature that brings you here at this important hour of the day, right before lunch, right? I mean, we could all be having good jobs making money, right? I could be painting my roof again. But we're all here. So why are you here? What do you want to learn? Just tell me. Or what is it? What is it that drives you? Raise your hand. What? Development of what? Development of your knowledge? I don't know if literature is going to help you develop your knowledge. Yeah, right. It's a requirement of your curriculum. How many are here for that reason? I can put you on the back and forget about you. All right. Okay. Oh, I told you not to sit in the back. Now, you're being in trouble. Whatever your reasons are. Yes?
Well, I'm here because I learned from your avant-garde style of teaching.
Avant-garde. Listen, I sent a story to this turkey in Oklahoma, right? I wrote it in what I call Texanese. You ever hear a Texan talk? Well, I can talk like a Texan, and I did in this story. It was just sort of a down-home countrified thing. And I sent it to this guy in Oklahoma, and he wrote back saying that he thought I was, check it out, aping some avant-garde writer. Aping? That means like imitating. Huh? What did I do? I didn't laugh. What would I have done had he been close? What? Punch him. Oh, come on. I would have to invent something, right? You got to have poetic judgments and justices. I don't know. Is my style avant-garde? If you want to know what the avant-garde really is, I'm glad you brought it up. You can look at this book, The Banquet Years by Roger Shattuck. There used to be some in the bookstore. I guess they're gone. That was years ago. That will tell you what the avant-garde is. The avant-garde is obviously what language? Not English, right? But what? Avant means in what language? It's French. Yeah, it's French, sure. So in English you'd say advanced wave, I guess. But avant-garde is a French term, and it describes certain aspects of French art, especially in the century. And The Banquet Years is the best book on that subject I've ever seen. It's wonderful what he does in examining Jarry and Henry Rousseau. Jarry's a playwright, Rousseau's a painter, Eric Satie, who's a musician, and Apollinaire, who's a poet. So you got a poet, an artist, a musician, and a playwright. And he shows how these four especially establish some notion of the avant-garde. Maybe I'm avant-garde. Maybe not. Questions, statements, quick. See, in a 50-minute class, we just about get going when bingo, the bell rings. That's the way it is. I never get used to a 50-minute class. It's handy for a tape recorder, I have to say, because I got an hour. I think I got an hour on each side. Or is it 45? I think 45 minutes on a side. So if I call roll in the beginning, there's 5 minutes gone. and then 45 minutes of hot tape, right? And I can sell these things on the open market, and do, right, regularly. Yeah.
In studying world literature, doesn't it also help one to sort of like predict, not predict, but help them to do things differently in the present and in the future? Even though some of them may be wise tales or something of the sort, you sort of like say, well, this is fiction, but even so, maybe I better do it this way just in case or something.
I mean, it improves our lives?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a business major. I graduated with a BS in business administration. It wasn't improving my life, I can tell you that. So I gave it up. I threw it over and took up this. Whether this has improved my life, it depends on relative to what. Right? So, sure. There's nothing more sterile, is there? Correct me if I'm wrong, than your average business career. Dull people, dull talk, dull, 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 dull. But they do make money.
That's the bottom line.
That's the way they talk. That's the bottom line. It may be that literature could improve your life. It just depends on how much you let it permeate yourself. It's not literature that I'm trying to teach. But what? Don't tell them. Let them guess. It's not literature that I'm teaching here. It's what? What? Humanity. That's what I thought you said. Yeah, people. People. Yeah, it's people. It's people that I'm teaching. How can I teach people? Can I teach you anything? No. I know that. Who teaches you?
Me.
You do. So get to work. You've got to start teaching yourself, and we just kick it around here. It's a stimulation. But you can't teach yourself if you won't read or you don't read the material that's assigned. So consequently, I see it, I understand this, I'm very serious about this. I see it as my main purpose and function in life to see to it that you have motives to read the Norton Anthology of World Masterpieces, 4th edition, volume 2.
Excuse me. But do you sign this
No.
thing here?
Bye. Okay. You got it? What's the main requirement of this class?
Read the material.
Read the book. Read, everybody say it.
Read the book.
Let me hear it again.
Read the book.
Let me hear it again.
Read the book.
That's the idea. You do that, and I'll do right by you. In order to help me to see whether I'm doing that, I have little quizzes I give. In fact, I've got last year's quizzes. I don't have to make them up anymore. So. Got lots of little quizzes. I'll throw them at you. Little reading quizzes. What's Gregor's mother's name? That type of thing. I'll save the thinking questions for the papers and the tests. This time, we began to talk about modernism. And if you've got any familiarity with the trends in current religious thought, by that I mean the last 20, 30, 40 years, you know that modernism is a problem term. So-and-so's a modernist, we might say, and thereby what do we mean? Does anybody know? Call him a modernist, it means he's a what? He's up to date? Is that what it means? Any other possibilities there?
About an idealist.
Well, if you have the modern, the first thing probably you look for is to juxtapose it, to oppose it with what we call the traditional. And I suppose that this is going to be one of the things that we come back to again and again in this class, because we embrace the 300 years of the modern period. It's hard to exactly say when the modern time begins. There are lots of qualifications we would like to make. However, one very important one embraces this 300 years that we take up. We're from 1700 to now. And that is the rise of science. Science begins with Sir Francis Bacon, right, who is the first person to explicitly write down what we now call the scientific method and to encourage this kind of experimentation. So from the modern point of view, a thing is true if you can what? Everybody's a modernist in here, I mean, from this point of view. It's true if what? Not invent. Science tries to do what about reality? Prove it. It's true if proven. But from the traditional point of view, it's true if what? Well, you're all close there. It's true if believed. If it was believed, it is believed. That's tradition. Tradition is a series of beliefs that grow up around, a body of work. I suppose one of the ones that might be of interest at some point to us would be the rabbinical traditions applied to the later Old Testament times. The rabbis were the masters, the teachers, and so on. And they interpreted the Old Testament, are they stories or facts or myths, to the people who lived in that time. And they wrote all this down, and there are volumes and volumes of rabbinical commentaries. These, however, are never based upon anything scientific, like, for example, archaeology, any kind of scientific inquiry. Archaeology is the best one. I mean, it was through archaeology that Heinrich Schliemann proved that the Trojan War really happened. It's not a myth at all. It's a fact. He's got the artifacts. As a matter of fact, you know what he's got? Schliemann dug in the ground, and what did he find? Gold. Found gold. And gold, yeah. And whose gold was it? It was the Trojan gold. And this gold is in museums. Hitler had it. You can tell Schliemann sounds German, right? Hitler had it. It was stolen from Hitler by the Russians. Now it's been apparently repatriated. It's a museum in Austria. Cups, golden cups. It's nice. I wish I had one of them, don't you? Who wants gold? Just raise your hand. No, we mean everybody. I don't see everybody. Raise your hand if you want gold. Just slip it right up there. You're not sure. If you're sure, raise your hand so we can really tell you really want gold. Because nobody is really sure. If I was really giving out gold, I'd say, who wants it? You think that's all you would do? Well, you can't take it. It has to be given. Well, you're not very sure yet. We'll have to see if we can improve on that. But the first thing about the modern is it's true if proven, but by the traditional, it's true if believed. Now, from this kind of opposition between a completely different way of thinking, spring what we call the modern dilemma. Did you know you were in a modern dilemma? There's a dilemma. I don't know where to put it. I'll put it here. What's the modern dilemma? To be or not to be, that is the question, says our friend Omelette. What's he talking about? Is anybody here worried about to be or not to be? Think about it. Do you have reason to be concerned about whether you're going to be or not be? Why?
It's possible.
Well, of course it is. It's personal, granted, but it's also social. You might not want to reveal the personal parts of it, but the social parts of it everybody shares. So give me a social reason why we have a dilemma about to be or not to be.
You say because society is corrupt, that would be a social aspect.
Society was always corrupt.
But I mean, now it's even worse. Well,
It isn't.
it's been surfaced.
It's not worse. I'd much rather live in South Dallas than in Renaissance Rome.
I mean,
It's a lot safer.
A few years back, there was a time when people just accepted that people in authority were, they were really good people. But now it's been proven more. So people are now believing that it's not true.
I think.
Your own president.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think you'd have a hard time proving that people in ancient times thought people in authority were good. For instance, Agamemnon was the king. And look what Achilles says about him. nasty stuff. Terry says, you're totally corrupt. Look what the prophets said about the kings of Israel. Look what history seems to indicate. Kings, of course, want people to think that they have a divine establishment and therefore must be righteous because they're powerful. But there always have been power conflicts. With what we call democratization, or the spreading out of power a little more, okay, you have this increased suspicion on the part of what the Renaissance called the vulgar, which just means the common people, the grassroots we call it. The suspicion on the part of the grassroots, the vulgar, that those in authority are not good examples for anything. And yet, very few people, I think, in America really believe what you're saying. I understand what students talk about, right? You're all students.
But I'm saying, like, maybe, say, 40 years ago, it was accepted that if a school teacher was, a parent would believe a school teacher before he would believe his own child. They thought doctors were good people, basically. They thought the reverend was a good person. You can believe him, you can trust him.
All right, well, I'm going to buy you here. Buy part of that. What we have is an erosion of authority.
Excuse me.
There's an erosion, I misspelled erosion, didn't I? E-R-O-S-I-O-N? I-A-N?
I-O-N.
Thank you. There's been an erosion of authority. So whereas at one point, parents thought school teachers were good and doctors too, they don't think it as much, but they still think it's fairly well established. Oh, you're a school teacher. That's how I bill myself. Every now and then I get a publication, when they put the biography in the back, I say, A.E. Reif teaches English at Bishop College, Dallas. Well, that tells you I'm a professor. When I meet people in the city, what do? I'm a school teacher. That never satisfies them. They always want to know more. Well, where do you teach? And I tell them, well, then, no, you're not a school teacher, you're a professor. And apparently the idea is that I'm better off being a professor than I would be being a school teacher. It just shows you what the average man knows. I mean, isn't this just student talk? Does young people talk? Donald, do you think that, the authority figures that you know, pastors, teachers, friends, fathers, mothers, grandparents, that they're corrupt?
No.
No.
But today, I would say that, I'm not going to say the majority, but my attitude has completely changed.
To what? What's your attitude?
To, as you say, erosion of authority, because they are corrupt today.
Hey,
They've always
who are you
been.
talking about?
No, well, teachers.
What? Hey, wait a minute. I'm the teacher.
You're a professor, there's a difference.
Nah, I'm a teacher.
But not all of them. Only you say about maybe 0.5%.
How come on? You can't ever justify that kind of talking. You don't know 1% of the teachers in this state, let alone anywhere else. So you don't know. See, it's rubbing off on him. Youthful rebellion's rubbing off on him.
Okay, based on what I've heard and what I understand.
But that's corrupt. Now that's corrupt. For you to go on what you heard is for you merely to repeat what's called the thought form of society. This is the concept you want to get. The thought form. The idea is to conform. And so all the people who do X, Y, and Z, dress, eat, talk, and be X, Y, and Z. That's conforming to the thought form. All you're doing is repeating it. So you're part of the problem if you talk that way. You can't do that. You have to use your own empiricism. Okay? Now we're back here. This is one of the goods of the modern time because it gives us an empirical method, which we can trust because I can know some truth if I find it out for myself. But I don't believe anything anybody else does. Do I? What do I believe that I hear? Nothing?
You believe only what you want to be a part of it. You take out things what you hear, and if it applies, or if it seems right, you believe it. You don't believe everything.
I can believe anything that I can corroborate.
But you can prove, right?
I can corroborate. You say, Joe Smith did that. Oh, yeah, I heard, yeah. Well, I heard that too from somebody else. That's a kind of corroboration, okay? Confirmation. But if you say Joe Smith did that and my evidence contradicts that, I may not believe at all. Well, how much, here's a way to test it. This is the way we can all test it. How much of what you see on the evening news, everybody write this down, okay, write down percentage. How much, what percent of the evening news do you believe? Write it down. Just write down a percent. And if you don't watch the news, then say newspaper. What percent do you believe? Write it down. What do you got? How much?
5%.
5%. How much? How much? 50. 75. Anybody top 75?
85.
85. 80. 90? Anybody less than 5? How many people have less than 25? Raise your hand. Just 2. How many people have less than 50? Raise your hand. You're scaring me. The great majority of the people in this class believe more than 50% of the evening news. I got to sit down.
I listen to it, but I don't really believe everything I hear. 50% serious.
Yeah.
I guess all this goes back to the thought form, whatever you hear, you tend to conform to beliefs.
Well, no, it's not absolutely necessary that you do this. It's just that we all have a tendency to want to belong. Young people are great at trying to belong. You're all networking, right? Didn't anybody ever tell you that people you go to school with are people you see the rest of your life? You heard that maybe? Yeah, well, so much for that. I finally heard from somebody I went to college with, not about a week ago. George Matters wrote to me. Well, he didn't write to me, but this old professor of accounting where he went to school, retired, and they want to give him make a chair for him. See? So apparently he sent a letter to everybody on the alumni list. So I got one of his letters. Well, that's great, George. But the teacher's name was Joe Ford. Failed me. I never thought he was all that great, you know. I mean, even if he hadn't failed me, I didn't even remember that he existed. But that's what essentially you're in the business of doing. You're in the business of networking and conforming. That's why there's a lot of interest even today in joining fraternities and sororities, in joining clubs and organizations, in joining this and that and the other thing. And that's why you believe more than 50% of the news. And that's a function not of individualism, but of the opposite. What's the opposite of individualism? Good, yeah. Collectivism, yeah. Get this is another important. I don't know what to say, see. The tendency probably is, in our time, to emphasize more of the individual. And probably in traditional thought, there's an emphasis upon more of the collective, yes. But there is still, because of the, you see, increased power of the media over people, there are probably fewer individualists in the world today than there were in 1700 by a great deal. So while the Earth's population has gone very much above anybody's expectation 300 years ago, it hasn't resulted in a great deal of free creative thinking on the part of humanity. Just the opposite. People become more and more conforming because, you see, you read it in the newspaper, you hear it on TV, your friends all believe it, so what about you? What do? You believe it too. And if you don't believe it, what do your friends do? I don't know. I ask you to test it. Somebody takes some outlandish position. Try it at dinner tonight, okay? Take some ridiculous position, but which you can have some reason for taking, and see if your friends don't get angry at you. Would they?
Yeah.
Well, so if you don't agree, the price of social acceptance is what? I'll accept you if you what? Agree with me. If you agree with me. Will, this is the important, will accept you if you agree with us. If you don't agree with us, what do we do to you? Go. So you see, nobody wants to be a loner, right? Spend your life alone. What do you want to be? What's your goal for the quality of your life? Tell me that. Somebody. David, what do you want to be? I don't mean what field you want to have, but what's your standard?
I just want to be happy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Put it up on the board. Who's got another one? Yeah.
Make lots of money.
Rich.
Rich.
Give me another one.
Successful.
Now, wait, who said famous? What do you mean famous? You want it to be recognized? Recognition.
Somebody.
You mean public recognition. Do you mean professional? What are you going to be?
Yeah.
What are you going to be? I forget. That's what I thought. Yeah. Okay. Right.
The business of the businessman.
Well, okay. Success. How do you measure it, though? See.
Lots of money.
Maybe you have your own business.
Success. Well, all right. Anything else?
Free.
What?
Freedom. Free.
Free? He wants to be free. What do you mean?
Just free literally. Free to talk, free to do whatever I want to do.
Here's definitely an oddball. Wants to be free, that means, first of all, he wants to be unattached. All these things produce attachment. I tell you now, that when I get fed up with getting my manuscripts back in the mail, which hasn't happened yet, that's because I'm not really quite totally satisfied yet that I am what I mean to be, okay? But after I've, in another maybe 10 or 5 or 10 or I don't know, whatever years, have produced an equal number of books that I've done in the last 2 years. So I have maybe 20 or 25. See. Then, when I get totally fed up of getting these things back, I will attach myself to every group in the country and become so winning and so liked that they'll ask me to publish. Well, I'll have to be very hungry. I will have to desire that very much.
What you gonna be fed?
I send a manuscript out. It's like a slap in the face. The person opens the envelope and it goes swam, you know, and that scares them. I mean, I just jump out of the envelope at them. That's no way to get published. So right now, I'm like, you know, I'm saying, I'm like you. See, I'm unattached. But in order for me to get success, I have to attach. In order for me to get rich, other people are what make you rich, you know. I mean, I know so-and-so, and he says, well, why don't you come on board with us? And sure, and, you know, up the ladder you go. Recognition is very obviously a form of attachment. Happiness, what do you mean? Who wants to be happy? Happy. What would make you happy?
I would definitely need to experience all those things that.
Nah, you don't need any of that stuff to be happy.
Well, happy, I'd say
What is happiness?
doing what I want to do.
No. No. I did what I'd always wanted to do from a very early age.
Okay, how about being satisfied with what I am and who?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people want to be happy here. So let's stay with happiness.
I think happiness comes from the state of mind, you know.
True, but what makes it come about?
You're happy if you're contented with everything, life, you know.
What is it?
When you're satisfied with life, you're going to be happy.
What makes me happy? What makes us all happy? There's only a couple.
You actually go.
You're all too young to know, aren't you? Nobody here knows what it is to be happy.
You're free.
No, I'm free.
If you are hated by everybody, everybody loves you.
Happiness is a very easy thing to achieve.
Right. You can be successful, but you may not be happy. Sure. So you have to be happy in order, they kind of go hand in hand.
That's right. You can be very successful and not be happy. And you can be happy and not be successful. And you can be rich and not be happy. You can be happy and not be rich. What do you have to be happy? One. Somebody raise their hand. What? Well, I'm asking you, for the 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever things you need to make you happy. Nadine? God. Fine. What else? You don't want to be a hermit, do you? Or a hermitess. What? Yeah, you got that. You need friends to be happy. Friends won't make you happy. Friends will make you sad.
Yeah, that's right.
Make you sad.
Yeah, well, you're being general. I'm asking you to be specific.
If you have good health, though, you'll be happy.
No. It doesn't make you happy to have good health.
Build yourself.
You're yourself already.
All right, I'm happy.
Well, far be it for me to, reveal the deep secrets of life. You need to find it out for yourself. Anybody got the book yet? Bookstore open? They're in. The bookstore's open. Good. I'll give you an assignment. Oh, wait. I got more tape here before I give you the assignment. These things have nothing whatever to do with literature, so forget them. Gone. Okay? Go. Nothing. This has nothing to do with the class we're in. We're talking about failure, and all the stuff we were talking about. Failure. We're talking about sadness. We're talking about poverty. We're talking about rejection. That's what it's all about. You want to live in the body. You want your bodies. See, young people are naive. They don't know. They think the body is mostly everything. Well, everybody's body's beautiful when they're young.
That's right.
See, just go to Sears. I always tell them this. Go to Sears. You won't see any beautiful people in Sears. They're all out in lumps and bumps. They do. There's not beautiful people in Sears. All you got is walk on a college campus or go to a college town, and you get this misimpression of life. Everybody's beautiful. And so all of you tend to think that these are the things that are, that go along with the youth. But the truth of it is, there's always been an opposition in thought between the body and the soul. And these will make your body happy. Success, happiness, riches, and recognition will make your body happy, and they'll kill your soul dead. What will make your soul happy? It's failure, sadness, poverty, and rejection. I say it'll make your soul happy because it'll make your soul strong. If your soul is strong, then in the end, in the middle, and then for that matter in the beginning, you'll be strong. And you won't be dependent on other people to give you what it is you think your body needs. Because you'll know the truth is, all you need is what? Stand on your own feet. I need your help. Who wants help? I will give help. I'm giving help right now. I'm not going to offer again. Raise your hand. Slip it up. Don't they trust me? He wants help. Is it? I'm going to give you an F. Give you all the help you need. Right? Would that really help him? Yes. Think about it. Why? Why would an F help and an A hurt him? That F will make him stand on his own 2 feet and never ask for help again. Yeah. See. Yeah. Well, good.